Tom, we'll talk about Raw in just a moment, but I do want to say a lot of us listening live are on edge here regarding the injury to the Buffalo Bills safety, Damar Hamlin, while Raw was going on. And there's no current update on his situation other than some hopeful reports from, I believe, a friend or agent. I've been covering Raw, so I haven't been able to follow this closely. But he was tackled on the field and stood up and then collapsed. And in a rare, extremely rare, I don't even know the history of the last time it happened, the NFL completely postponed a game due to injury. Just some scary, dramatic moments on the field with his teammates. And so it seems like there's some hopeful news that he's in stable condition. But again, I would rely on people who are covering this for your official updates. But it is a chilling occurrence, and it brings me back to the Owen Hart situation. And I think wrestling fans who've been around a long time and lived through that moment, it has to bring back memories of that night. And WWE, Vince McMahon's ultimate decision to continue with the event. There are reports, and it's still very fresh and new, that more will be confirmed about this, but that the NFL was wanted to continue the game, and it was the players who just said they couldn't continue. I'm just kind of shaken up by it, because the images of his teammates reacting to this and the concern the last hour or so about whether he was even alive has been scary in the background for those of us watching Raw, but also staying tuned to social media. And again, it is bringing me back to the Owen Hart incident. So, Tom, I just want to throw to you. I don't know if you were just isolated on Raw or following this at all otherwise, but anything you want to add on that before we pivot somewhat awkwardly to less important matters?
No, this is news to me, but it is truly terrifying, and just a reminder as to why it's so important, regardless of what sport or form of entertainment you are partaking of, to keep safety foremost among your priorities. And of course, I film motorsports in the Central Florida area, and I've seen my share of pretty nasty wrecks. Safety is the number one thing there, and I've seen some pretty scary stuff that people climb out of. I've seen some scary stuff that it's less fortunate, but there are certain risks taken, but all the safety gear is in place, and manufacturers and officials are always trying to make improvements there. So I'm sure whatever this was will be a situation that is closely studied, as many other situations are in helmet crafting, and of course what you're talking about, whether or not the show must go on.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, what we went through with the death of Owen Hart and the continuation of that show, and putting wrestlers on camera, just distraught over the news, confirmed during the pay-per-view that Owen had died when he fell from the rafters in Kansas City. And this was, a player who just took a tackle to the chest and went down, and then just got up and then collapsed. And already some speculation from doctors online that, if your chest is hit in the exact right position as the electrical charge is going to your heart, I'm using imprecise language here, that it can cause the heart to stop. But fortunately, in any high budget sport, there's a high level of medical help on hand. And so we're all hoping that the quick attention that he got is life-saving. So again, I just couldn't not bring that up, considering, it's on, national network news right now. And, I'm getting alerts from more than just sports websites, covering this nearly unprecedented occurrence. There's a lot of injuries, including neck injuries in the NFL, but to have somebody undergo CPR on the field for as long as that went on, and then being taken out in an ambulance is quite, it's cliche to say it puts in perspective sports, but wow, it is. I was watching the main event with Seth Rollins and Austin Theory tonight, and just I was a little more on edge with the moves they were doing. Knowing something can happen anytime. With Owen, it was just an ill-advised stunt with someone who was known to be afraid of heights, without the full safety procedure that you would see in other sports. I know I interviewed Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara about this in LA for the Ultimate Insiders DVD series, and they gave their perspective on interactions with Owen that day leading up to the match, and that Owen ultimately agreed to it. But boy, have we written and talked a lot about that going back decades now, and I suspect it'll be brought back up more than just here in light of what happened here. But let's shift gears and talk about Raw. We can start in a number of places. I don't know if there's like one obvious place to start. It was the first show of the new year, and a decent amount happened, Tom. But we got a really good, exciting main event with the continued cementing of Austin Theory as a main event star. And I know he doesn't want to be talked about as a future. His gimmick is I'm the now. We don't have to abide by that. That is storyline. I will say he does seem like he is cementing himself as a big part of the future. And I have said for months now that word from WWE was that Austin Theory had a really good attitude, was showing real signs of maturity as he went through the WWE system, and is very focused on being great at what he does. And he asks the right questions of the right people, and is putting in the work. And he has some of the natural talent you need. A lot of people put in the work, but they just don't quite have the look or the talent or the charisma. He has all that, and it was going to come down to approaching things the right way, and then having matches where he delivers when put in the spotlight. And when you get 23 minutes against Seth Rollins live on Raw on the first show of 2023, after cutting a promo saying this is going to be your year, and you retain the title, granted, chicanery, low blows, interference, ref bumps, a lot of stuff went on. It is WWE after all. I just thought this was another piece of evidence that WWE is right at this point to continue to believe that Austin Theory has a legitimate chance to be a top-tier player for years to come. What's your takeaway from tonight's main event?
Yes, absolutely. As I usually say with you regarding Austin Theory, all of those things he's been showing in WWE, he was showing even before he got there when he was at the top of the Evolve promotion. So it's he's just been on this path, and things have continued to go well for him. He has ensured that with his attitude and his dedication and just his natural knack for being in the ring and presenting himself as a character. I think tonight was just I wasn't when I wrote this in my notes, I wasn't intending for it to play into his I am the now gimmick, but I was thinking that 2022 he felt like a future player who was looking for his way in, and creative was looking for how to give him that foot in whatever door it was going to end up being. And now he just feels like he's part of the WWE main roster, and he's supposed to be there. He feels like as big a star as anyone else when he comes out. So with the attitude shift that we've seen, even though, as I've said, I'm on the side that didn't care for the way the Money in the Bank situation was handled, the fact that it has resulted in this character shift, and that's what they decided to do with it, it's been a net positive for Austin Theory, if not the Money in the Bank gimmick. I just think it's yet another good night for Austin Theory, and he's had enough of them in a row that he just feels like he's on the show, not a newcomer that we should be turning our nose up at.
Yeah. What'd you think of the finish? Was it too much? Ref bump, low blow, playing up the storyline of Seth's knee giving out, which is a little more sports-like. Theory threatening to leave with the title, get intentionally DQ'd, Seth dragging him back to the ring. A lot going on. WWE doesn't do, and correct me if you think I'm wrong in this characterization, but they don't do ref bumps in big matches very often. There have been times over the decades I've been watching wrestling where bookers went to that way too often. I don't think we're in that era. When you see this, you get a little worried that under Paul Levesque, that cop-out finishes or, the lack of, brave booking and just having Theory retain clean over Seth isn't something that he's willing to do as booker, with the idea in the back of his mind, well, Seth's probably going to be challenging Roman Reigns sometime in the next year or so, and we need him strong. And we're not quite ready to put Theory over that strong. Plus, heel heat comes from cheating to win. That's how pro wrestling works. That would be his defense. What do you think?
I wish I had a cleaner answer for this. It's definitely something I noticed and rolled my eyes at a little bit, only a very little bit, because even though I don't like, well, it's WWE as a criticism, it is a signature thing that this company does. I certainly haven't been keeping stats on ref bumps. I feel like I've been seeing them in big matches more often than not. Maybe I'm just getting picky because I really wish that Roman would win clean more often. He feels like a character who should, even though he's a heel. And when he relies on chicanery, yeah, you use the word, and it's a good word. When he relies on that, I feel like it's ill-fitting for him. It shouldn't happen almost 100% of the time. But yeah, I think for Austin Theory, it's something that I don't mind seeing, and I just have to cast my mind back, as I often do, to when I was not analyzing the product in this way, and I was just purely a fan. And I would be, Monday after Monday after Monday, I would be getting upset when something like this would happen, and it would cause my guy to lose. So if that tried and true is still working for younger fans, then fantastic.
All right. Well, let's pause and introduce the show, and then we'll incorporate callers into the mix. We got Sean, our on-site correspondent tonight, who is in the arena for tonight's happenings, and we got some emails coming in, too. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, January 2nd, 2023. Whew. I was nervous I was going to screw up and say 2022. I didn't. My first successful live reading without having to correct the year. I think last year I got it wrong like 6 times before I got it right once. So it is January 2nd, 2023. And I'm Wade Keller, the host of the program, the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website, PWTorch.com, and the host of a variety of podcasts, including this one, The Post Show. We also have our Wade Keller Pro Wrestling podcast, which will feature Jason Powell on the flagship edition tomorrow. That's our blue logo show. So if you're new to things around here, this is our red logo show. Please subscribe and listen as we cover Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown with live post shows, and then a downloadable version on our podcast feed every week. And then our blue logo show features most prominently each week our flagship edition. And Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net is the longest running co-host on the flagship, and he'll be joining me tomorrow, so look for that. If you have questions about anything going on in the wrestling scene regarding Raw tonight or AEW or anything else, Wrestle Kingdom, drop us an email, wadekellerpodcast at pwtorch.com. That's wadekellerpodcast at pwtorch.com. That same email applies tonight if you're live streaming the show and want to contribute via email rather than phone call. Consider yourself formally invited to do so. Wade Keller Podcast at pwtorch.com. I mentioned we have callers, and we do, and you can be one of them. Our number, if you're live streaming our show, is 347-215-8558. That's 347-215-8558. And so give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about tonight's episode. Meanwhile, the voice you have heard so far on the show, besides mine, is Tom Staup. He is a PWTorch contributor, the host of the Bonus Point VIP podcast. He is the co-star of NXT 8 Years Back, another VIP exclusive show with Kelly Wells. He has covered NXT for us for years, including many on-site reports over the years from attending NXT TV down at, not the Performance Center, why am I forgetting the name of the building? Oh, Full Sail. Yeah, it's been a while. At Full Sail. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, here come the plugs. I already mentioned my motorsports thing, and I promised myself that in 2023, I guess you could call it a resolution, that I would be more forthcoming in promoting it because, boy, I put a lot of time into it. I've been doing it for 7 years, and I've been doing it a lot lately to make sure that 2023 is going to be the best year for the channel yet. So if you are interested in Central Florida stock car racing, which sounds really specific, but there's some really good stuff going on down here. It's Speedway Video. I made sure I picked a generic name so everybody could remember it. Speedway Video on YouTube. Subscribe for free. There are already thousands of videos there and more coming very soon. I just upgraded my equipment. But yes, bonus point. It is my favorite thing I'm currently doing for the Torch. It's coming up on about a year of monthly podcasts, trying to approach them in a bit of a hotline format, like Wade's hotline, so I can keep it short for you. I spend every single day, parts of my day catching up on what I can glean of developmental news coming out of the Performance Center. Even when you speak to people who are close to WWE, they will say themselves, like, man, I just don't know what's going on there. So it is really hard to get headlines out of it, but I collect what I can over the course of a month, and I give it all to you in between 30 and 60 minutes. The new episode just came up yesterday, Sunday, January 1st, 2023. I'm very happy with how the new episode came out, and hopefully you all are finding it entertaining and informative. Informative first, but hopefully the new one is entertaining. I had some fun with it. And, of course, there's also NXT 8 Years Back on VIP, dropping every Saturday with Kelly Wells. Kevin Owens, or no, it wasn't Kevin Owens. It was Sami Zayn who was there to stage a hostile takeover of Raw. And Sami Zayn knows something about hostile takeovers because it was Kevin Owens who was hostile to him at a takeover 8 years ago. And that is one of the things that we have been discussing lately on that show.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Check that out, everybody. Let's pivot back to talking Raw. And there's a lot more to talk about on tonight's show, but we'll let William from San Diego kick off the color portion with his topics. William, thank you for calling up. What do you think about Raw tonight? What's on your mind?
Yeah, thank you guys for taking the call. Happy New Year. I thought it was a good show to kick off the new year. Not as exciting as, the SmackDown from last week, but it's not like they promised. I mean, it wasn't going to live up to that, but good overall. This is something that I didn't notice personally, but I saw a few people pointing it out on social media that I think there was this backstage shot of Damage Control walking, backstage, and in the background you could see Adam Pearce talking to MVP and Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Oh. And it seems like they're planting more seeds for I already forget, Hurt Business reunion. And my first question, what do you think of the idea of that? Does it feel like maybe, I don't know, is it a good idea to go back to that? Because I feel like they pulled the trigger with Bobby Lashley, and I actually think he was doing a pretty good job on his own as a babyface singles act. And, in the time since, I feel like Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander had been diminished quite a lot. So I don't know if there's still something to be salvaged there. Is it a good idea to go back to that?
Yeah. So, Tom, I think it's too late to create a credible faction that Cedric and Shelton are 2/3 of or half of, if you count MVP. They've just been marginalized too much. And I think you can't start and stop a faction like that and then treat the two key parts of it the way that they have. I do like Paul Levesque putting, having little, if they're Easter eggs or just things in the background you get rewarded for paying attention to that are relevant and can be talking points. I like that aspect of this. I didn't think Lashley was in a great spot lately. I didn't really know what to think of his character. I don't think fans did either. I thought had they just kept Hurt Business together and kept them strong, that would have been better. Or if you kept Lashley just a clear-cut babyface, that would have been just fine. Even if I think, it felt very up and down with Lashley in terms of whether he was a hot commodity or not. And I think Hurt Business almost feels like a fallback plan because they kind of lost their way a little bit. And they're like, well, things seem to be going well with that, and let's try that again. I just don't know how it doesn't feel derivative and played out if they go back to it yet again. Tom, what do you think?
I agree with you about the backstage environment. I'm sure Nikki Cross was lurking around at some point as well, as she has been lately. Although I don't usually notice those things myself. I usually need social media to point it out for me. But Yeah, I mean there's obviously more fruit to have been squeezed from the Hurt Business, or more juice to have been squeezed from the Hurt Business fruit. I mean to say, so that on the face of it sounds promising. Although exactly what you brought up about Shelton and Cedric is the red flag there. I guess the best I can conjure to play devil's advocate to your point is that Cedric and Shelton have been diminished not to the point of seeming ineffective, but to the point of seeming non-existent unless you're watching main event. So if they're brought back now as part of a faction that one would imagine would be warmly received upon its return, maybe that's all you need is just a new framing. And they certainly don't have to be world killers. They could still be, lackeys to Bobby and MVP. But still, you'd want them to be better than the guys who lose to the people who are getting, the NXT wrestlers who are getting main event spots week in and week out.
All right, let's go back to William for any follow-up on anything we said on that topic, or you can change topics too if you'd like.
Yeah, a different topic. We learned over the weekend, I think, that AJ Styles is going to be out for a while with an ankle injury. It just seems like bad timing for the rest of, the OC for, Gallows and Anderson and, Yim. How do you, are the prospects for them in the coming weeks any good without AJ being there, kind of being the anchor for that group? Or, because, originally I thought when Mia Yim came out for the match with Becky that, okay, at least maybe they're going to move, they're already maybe trying to move her towards the feud with Damage Control, have her help Becky with the numbers game or whatever. But it seemed like, I don't know, maybe it just seems like she was there to just take the fall. So I don't know. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. So AJ going down with an ankle injury, he says it's going to be the longest he's been out of action with an injury in his career. I don't have instant recall of what the longest time before that was, but AJ sounds confident / pessimistic, in the sense that it'll be longer than his prior longest injury. And I think it does just derail the OC completely. I don't think there's much value in Anderson and Gallows unless they're with AJ. I think they were brought in because AJ likes having them around, and they needed a faction to go against Damian Priest and Finn Balor and Dominic and Rhea Ripley. And now they're going to have to regroup. And it was notable that they weren't part of tonight's show. I think they're going to have to completely reset their plans and expectations for those two factions going at it. And with Anderson and Gallows, I mean, I think their value comes from being a couple people to create a faction around AJ Styles, and on their own, I don't know if anyone in WWE is all that excited about figuring out something significant for them to do otherwise. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this going into the show as well, and I was specifically thinking this is an opportunity for Mia Yim to find some motivation. She's a wrestler who I and a lot of other people have liked, but in my personal opinion, I feel that she has been at a plateau for several years, both in and out of WWE. And when she returned, it was really lackluster. It was just like, oh, she's also here, and that's kind of been what it's been. So I was envisioning, she finally states, here's why I'm considered a member of the OC, and I'm going to be the leader in AJ's absence. So that's what I was envisioning. But separating her off like they seem to have done with I don't believe any mention of the OC as a faction at all tonight, not that I picked up on. I liked what I saw because, sure, she was there to take the fall, but she got some shine in the match. Sure, she did a lot of sympathy building for a Becky hot tag as well, but she got some shine in the match, showed off her finisher, which Corey Graves inaccurately called as Eat Defeat. That's what it's called when Gail Kim does it. When Mia Yim does it, it's called soul food, spelled Seoul like the capital of South Korea. And, I just getting the Becky Lynch rub. You don't want just anybody running from the back to help out Becky, I don't think. So, yeah, no, I liked this as a spot for Mia. I thought she looked pretty good. And yeah, Luke Gallows at least got mentioned by name when he was in part of the brawl at the very beginning of the show. Anderson, of course, has to be in Japan already, I would imagine, or on an airplane right now. So that would explain that. But yeah, no, otherwise I agree. Although I am a Gallows and Anderson fan, I absolutely agree with your analysis of what value they bring, Wade.
And, the Judgment Day didn't get a lot, but we did get Dominic. One of my favorite segments of the show, talking about now being hardened due to doing hard time, and now he's got street cred, which is hilarious. I mean, he deadpan delivered as well as anyone could hope for as far as that goes. Great heat generator. I guarantee there's people who are just angry, like who know better, but they're angry at Dominic for claiming he did hard time when he, I don't know how much time, storyline-wise, he spent in jail. But jail and prison are two different things, and hard time is not what he experienced. So that was fun. Well, we'll see what the follow-up is. What'd you think, Tom?
Yeah, I basically had your same takeaways, and I are we supposed that nice brightly lit white room I think we were supposed to believe was his cell? So yeah, I think although overall I'm not sure what I should make of this for Dom's trajectory or how it may alter it, I definitely liked it in the sense that although I'm not sure how a camera got in there, if I'm correct in my interpretation of what that space was, it plays right into the crowd heat for him for precisely the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah. All right, we'll go back to William. Any follow-up on that or another topic, Wayne?
Yeah, I was actually going to go to the Dominic stuff. I think you may have actually answered my question, but I don't know, maybe you'll have a little bit more to add. But my question was going to be like exactly about that video. Like, are we supposed to take it seriously? Like, are we actually going to get like a more hardened version of Dominic Mysterio, or like a slightly edgier version of him?
No,
or,
we're going to get the same.
Is he just going to have like a big attitude about it?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to get the same Dominic in terms of like, we're not supposed to take him more seriously, but he is going to take himself a lot more seriously. My hunch is he's going to talk incessantly about how hardened he is based on this experience, and that his dad is going to pay a price for what happened, and now he sees the world differently. But when threatened, he's still going to hide behind Rhea Ripley. That's my prediction, and I think it's a good role for him. Tom.
Hey kid, what are you in for? I walked into my parents' house when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I
then
agree with you.
And then crying out the window, which I loved in the sketch to Rhea Ripley. I'm not going to make it. I'm not made for this. And the total turnaround. It's fun. I mean, not everybody loves Dominic and his push, and I get it. And there is a level of privilege he has based on his dad, but what he has grown into a really fun character playing off of Rhea Ripley, and I thought tonight showed a side of him that I thought he had in him. I mean, like I talked about this, I think, on the Fix last week, but that I was calling ahead of time that Dominic looked like he'd be a good punk-ass 20-something heel, who turns on his dad when they teased it forever. I thought there were signs there that he had that in him, and he showed it again tonight. There's some acting skills there and facial expressions that should not be taken for granted. Not everybody could be pulling off this character, I think, as well as he is. And he's the type of mid-carder. You go to a house show and you boo him, and you have fun booing him, and I think he's going to play off those boos from the crowd well, and play his part on the show. I don't think he's on a trajectory to be at Austin Theory's level. You can't rule anything out, but he'd have to get a lot better in the ring to be as serious anywhere near top tier or even top of the second tier. But he's playing the role well. He's doing what's asked of him well right now, and some of his weaknesses are being hidden in a faction, and but I also think he's enhancing that faction, which might be a little bit colorless without him. So it's, you know, I think it's a good situation for everybody right now associated with him. William, anything else?
Yep, and that's the
go ahead, Tom.
part of the whole wrestling thing is hiding weaknesses is an asset. You know, no matter whether you're coming in or whether you're a main eventer for 20 years. I mean, we saw it with John Cena on Friday night. So that's just part of it. And you know, the claims track, Wade, I do remember it was a backstage segment with Ray and Samoa Joe, and Dominic was there also. And you pointed that out about him then, and you were spot on. He's never going to be my favorite character on the show, but the fact is, it's working. Like the criticisms of Charlotte Flair, you know, she's only there. Or you know, I'm thinking back 8 years. 8 years back on VIP, she's champion as we're covering it on Saturdays, and so much of the criticism is like, oh, she's only there because of her dad. But what she's doing in the ring as a character is working. And it's in her case, it's not that may have been her foot in the door, but what she's doing doesn't work because of her lineage. With Dominic, what they're doing with him can only work because he's Ray's son. Mm-hmm. So because it is working, I'm not complaining about it, even though, you know, it's hard to have a hard disagree with his critics, but it's just like in the end, they're telling an effective story and getting the reaction that they want. So I'm for it.
Yeah. All right, William, anything else you want to close with?
Yeah, my closing topic that I wanted to talk about, and let me know if you guys agree with this, comparison, or if you disagree. But what do you guys think of the Bianca and Alexa match? And the comparison that I wanted to make was, it kind of feels like they could be in danger of, kind of the same thing that happened with Seth Rollins and The Fiend back in, like, I don't know what it was, 2019 or whatever. Mm-hmm. A little bit of that kind of happening where you had The Fiend making his debut, and they immediately shot him up to that Universal title feud with Seth Rollins, and people were super excited about The Fiend and not so excited about Seth Rollins as champ, and, you know, they turned on him, and they really wanted The Fiend to take that title from him, and it's not a one-to-one comparison, but I feel like there's a little bit of some elements of that with Alexa Bliss, where I think they really like that character that she used to portray with Bray Wyatt. And, you know, when she attacked Bianca at the end, there were some, one more time chants. It's not like the whole arena was doing it, but there was a little bit of that doing it. And frankly, I don't think, kind of similarly to Seth, I don't think that Bianca has had the hottest reign as a champion.
Yeah. Tom, you've seen both of them in developmental. I thought the match was clunky. Corey Graves, it seemed like every third comment was trying to cover for a botched spot or light being shown. It wasn't the smoothest of matches. I put most of that on Alexa. To my eyes, that was what was going on, but I don't know if it's 100% her fault or the majority, but that would be my assessment looking at it. I'm not too worried about Belair showing the type of fear that Seth did of the the supernatural voodoo stuff. It's more Bliss just sort of having her mind affected by the firefly flashing and a guy in a mask at ringside and that kind of triggering something in her. And I think it's within the realm of pro wrestling storytelling. It doesn't go outside the realm like some of the cinematic matches did and some of the Fiend stuff, where you can imagine somebody having some mental issues based on being messed up from being around the Fiend. That still carries over. And I guess that's within the latitude of how I can watch wrestling and watch her character. I just wish her matches were better. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I've been a defender of Alexa in the ring. It's been more difficult lately, and we just have to cast the veil of like, oh, it's her character, right? Her character isn't motivated, and of course I've been a defender of Bianca going back. I think it was about 5 years ago a little more than 5 years ago now, that she debuted in NXT, and she's just been fantastic the whole time. Both of them should be they are way better than doing a match like this on TV. I I was really looking forward to this. You and I talked about the build to it last time I was on, and yeah, it was a clunker. And even if I want to say, oh, Alexa's trying to play an unmotivated character for the last time before the Fiend really gets back in her head, or the Bray Wyatt thing, I mean, if you're playing that, you're not going to, for example, pull down the rope for Bianca to fall out of the ring before she's even started moving. And Bianca still charged forward because that was the spot they were doing, but it looked totally transparent, as did a lot of the match, unfortunately. So yeah, no, I agree with you, Wade, that I don't really worry about this going down the same path. And I don't think Alexa is becoming, as some people online have called it, the girl fiend. I don't think that we're at risk of that occurring here. I just think that while, last time you and I talked about it, Wade, we thought that this match would be the big stage that Alexa's culmination of this storyline that breaks her back toward Bray. We thought that it would be here, but instead it just got put on 20 minutes into the first hour of the show rather than main event or crossover spot or anything. First match on the show, sure, but it was not put in a prime spot, and we are left with a non-finish with Alexa in a backstage interview later saying that she wants more and that she wants the championship. So it seems like we're probably heading to a Rumble match, and that will be the even bigger stage that something spooky will happen at. No, I do not expect Alexa to win the title. I just think they're looking for the biggest stage that they can put this angle on. And with Bray already having a singles match on that show, I wonder if they'll try to do some kind of overlap, like the situation where Buddy Murphy was despondent after another loss to Aleister Black, and Seth Rollins came out for what I think was a main event segment and recruited Buddy Murphy, so the segments overlapped. So I wonder if we'll get something like that. But yeah, I'm not specifically concerned about the same things you are, William, but this in a nutshell tonight was not a good evening for the story, nor the key participants.
Just a little more on Belair. I mean, I thought some of what she did in this match felt, I don't know if performative is the right use of the word, but it was like acrobatic and showy, as opposed to an athlete in a fight. And I know some of the storyline called for that. I know with Bliss and the way that she's wrestling lately, it can be awkward. But when you're, jumping up onto the second rope and then turning around to look at your opponent and spanking yourself, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, I don't think that's what Bianca Belair fans want to see, at least other than a small slice. And I don't think you should be catering to that small slice. I think they'll be there for her if she seems more like a serious athlete. And I just think it's kind of some of the things she did in that match and her body language and reactions just felt like bad instincts or bad direction or a combination of both. I think she's better and more comfortable in a more straightforward feud or program or match, where whether she's a heel or a face, it's more about the athletic contest. And I think when she starts to lean into the gimmick, the twirling ponytail and the whole routine coming to the ring, I feel disconnected from her. It feels like somebody who's putting on a performance. I think that on the mic with her. I think that with her ring entrance, and it carried over into some of what was going on in the ring tonight. And I think the world of her in terms of her upside. And I just think this last year has been disappointing. And I was hoping under Paul Levesque that it would be that there would be a shift in how she was framed and how she was produced and what she was kind of steered towards. And we're not getting that. And I'm not saying I'm losing hope, but I just, it's taking some patience to think she's going to be the centerpiece attraction that a year ago and even 2 years ago I thought she could be. But I always consistently have said it would take toning down some of the gimmicky stuff that she does.
I think there's a contemporary sensibility that appreciates when someone has worked as hard as she has to be as good as she is, flaunting it a bit and being a bit cocky and proud. Those aren't necessarily negatives when you've earned it the way she has, and when you've had, just speaking for her current spot, the championship since last WrestleMania, as commentary pointed out. I think there is a place in current culture that does appreciate that and want someone to enjoy their own accomplishments in that way, rather than just being purely humble. But I will say that if memory serves, her entire NXT run was as a heel, and her entire main roster run thus far has been as a face, and that's the key difference. Whereas, she did go up against Shayna Baszler a couple times, and incidentally, those were the times that I was most critical of her on the Daily Cast. So, yeah, I guess even though I do really like Bianca as a babyface, I think that it really does just click better as a heel, since naturally her mannerisms are more heelish. And
I'm fine with some cockiness to a babyface. I'm not asking for, just being humble and gracious and I'm like, but if you're gonna be cocky, do it in a way that doesn't feel like you are a derivative imitation of a video game that's dumbing down a human being into gestures. And that's what Bianca's character is. It's a derivative dumbing down of a human being into a series of gestures. And she's more than that. And it just seems so obvious to me that somebody should be talking to her and going, hey, some people need that. Some people need to do that because they don't have enough else going for them. You don't need to do that. There's a ceiling on that. You have more. Just let go of some of the routine and the twirling and the pasted on smile and slapping your butt in the middle of a match. It's just like, be more of the athlete that your gimmick is, instead of that derivative dumbed down video game portrayal of a wrestler. I'll go back to William just for any closing words, since we did cover quite a bit of what you had a lot to say about your last topic.
Yeah. Just adding a little bit more to what you guys were saying about, I think the word you used was performative aspect of the match. There was a sequence right at the beginning that I thought felt really out of place for a title match, where the match starts and Alexa runs straight towards Bianca, and they do the typical comedy bit where the bigger person just extends their hand, and then the smaller person tries punching them, but they can't reach them because they're too small. And then she did like a wind up like this thing with like winding her arm up for like a punch, kind of like Popeye, and it felt kind of silly and out of place. And then I'll credit social media for this. I saw someone point out that the whole thing was lifted from the comedy film Scary Movie 3, I think. And I don't know. I feel like that's not this feud is not really the right place to turn to wacky Scary Movie 3 references in the middle of your title match. But Happy New Year. Thank you guys for taking the call. Have a good one.
Great. Thanks, Roy. Appreciate it. Our number, if you want to join the show in progress here, consider yourself invited. 347-215-8558. And when you call, push 1 on your keypad. That'll flag you on our switchboard. We got Sean standing by as an on-site correspondent. We'll get to him momentarily. We'll go next, though, to Brad in Florida. Brad, welcome to the show. What jumped out on Raw tonight for you?
Hey, Wade. Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking me really quick. And I do want to hear Sean on site, so I'll be very brief. But, I kind of disagree on the Alexa Bianca match. I actually found it pretty entertaining personally, and just looking at through the lens of Bianca is so much bigger and so much stronger than Alexa. I'm going into it knowing that Alexa's really not going to be able to lift her up. It's not like she's facing Nikki Ash or whatever. I mean, I know she's not going to be able to do a lot of things to Bianca, so she is kind of limited going in. And I do think, and I'm not the biggest Alexa Bliss fan at all, but I do think she did a pretty good job considering what she had to work with in terms of just the size disparity and, and I found the end actually very entertaining, especially the part where the masks in the crowd were the Uncle Howdy masks, not not like the Fiend or something like that. That's more closely associated with Bray Wyatt, as we've been learning throughout the last few weeks. So I'm wondering if this leads to kind of like, this isn't even a Bray thing. This is like a Howdy thing, and he's the evil side of this whole thing. And that's like, I actually found it kind of interesting and compelling at the end. And I mean, I guess, I was kind of surprised you guys didn't see it that way. And kind of thought, that it really was kind of a little bit silly, because I found it to be very interesting, and I'm actually excited to see what's next. And I did want to ask you guys about the use of blood, because obviously with Bianca bleeding like that at the end, I know that Triple H was against the use of blood. I assume that was fake blood coming from Bianca's mouth. It had to be, right? So does that mean we're back on the blood bandwagon, or is this just a one-shot deal in your opinion, because, of like the nature of this being this kind of spooky thing, and it was kind of appropriate in this instance?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, I was critical of Bianca's the last thing I said, things that I've been critical of for a while with her, which is I feel that if she's more natural, she'll be a bigger star. And she leans on a few just kind of heel things that were meant to gain heel heater early on, and things that just don't feel very natural. And so that doesn't have a lot to do with anything specifically in this match, other than it was a continuation of it, from her ring entrance to, slapping her ass in the middle of the match and that kind of thing. With Bliss, my issue, and perhaps Bianca played a role, I thought the match was clunky. But I did say I thought that the stuff with the guy in the mask at ringside and Bliss having, a breakdown or snapping or having something triggered in her makes sense within the WWE parameters of the way they tell stories. I'm not actually critical of that, and I'm intrigued by it, and I want to see how it plays out. So I'm not really down on it, so I want to make that clear. If you got a different impression, Brad, I'm intrigued by the Bliss storyline and the Fiend and Uncle Howdy storyline. So, Tom, I guess I'll throw it to you, because I'm also kind of curious in a broader sense of what you think of the latest with not just Bliss, but the larger Bray, Uncle Howdy, the dynamic on SmackDown. We had Uncle Howdy stand next to Bray. Bray seemed to think that would be natural to have Uncle Howdy standing next to him, only then to have Uncle Howdy in as a partner, a friend, rather than a foe or an enemy. And then that didn't last long, because then he got the Sister Abigail dropped him, and then LA Knight, understandably so, his character leaped out of the ring when things weren't what he thought, when Uncle Howdy turned out not to be on Bray's side, and that kind of threw off his interpretation of things. So I'm curious for your take on what we saw Friday and tonight, and where you are overall on the storyline, not just what's happening, but the pace of it being revealed.
Briefly, I'll mention that, and someone can step in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was your voice, Brad, as the on-site for that show. Nice job there. That was an informative perspective from a big episode. And the Brad mentioned the blood. I read in your report, Wade, that you suspected maybe it came from Alexa's nose, and that did cross my mind. I think, especially once they replayed it, I think that she just caught the stairs in a bad way when she got thrown into the stairs and the upper half went flying. I think it caught her chin, but I'm not certain. I do not think that it was fake blood. If it was, it definitely went awry, because that would be a strange place for it. I think that she just got nicked by the stairs, but that's just my guess. Boy. I've been one of Bray's biggest defenders, flaws and all. I had similar opinions about the Seth Rollins feud as William brought up. But I still presently want, not past tense, I want his return to go well. And the fact that the introduction of whatever his new deal is, even though I don't feel like he needed a new one, he could have come back as the Fiend, he could have come back as cult leader Bray, but he's got a whole new thing going on. The fact that it is being so drawn out gives me confidence that this was something that was really plotted out ahead of time. And somebody could say the exact opposite for the same reason, but it feels like there is a backstage confidence in, okay, Bray's got he's figured this all out. Whoever's working with him, they've got it all figured out. We're going to give it the time that it needs to play out, because what was missing previously from Bray's vision was a belief in the long term of it backstage. So now he's finally getting that. But I have just not been drawn in by anything that he's doing, and week to week there may be different reasons why. I'm not certain. The presumably Bo Dallas appearance as Uncle Howdy delivering a Sister Abigail really gave me too many new wrinkles to consider. It just felt like another thing that's happening in an oddly lengthy LA Knight feud. When LA Knight, like I appreciate the guy's talent, and I think he's got a spot on the show for sure. But when he was introduced as Bray's initial adversary, I figured, okay, it's just going to be a quick squash and that's that. And now we've got, like, I think going on a 2-month feud out of it, since we've got a whole other month of build to a match that's probably going to be worked under black lights, I guess. So it almost feels like an LA Knight rub overall. But yeah, just if there are any nuggets in that mishmash of words that I just said to try to pick out as to why this Bray Wyatt fan who wants his stuff to work is not jiving with the current story, there you go. I'm hoping that the Alexa thing can add a different dimension to it. I do think it would be interesting because of what Brad pointed out with the what I presume is a Tom Savini mask, since Tom Savini designed the Fiend mask, and the Uncle Howdy mask looks like it could have been a prototype for the Black Phone mask, which was designed by Tom Savini for that Ethan Hawke film last year, directed by Scott Derrickson. I do think it would be interesting if she is perverted by Howdy rather than Bray specifically, and she is standing across from Bray. And last time we saw them across from one another, it was in an adversarial context at WrestleMania 37, I believe it was, after that Randy Orton match. Or during that Randy Orton match. So we figured, you and I figured the last time we talked about this, Wade, that this match would end in some kind of manner that fit the template that it did play out in. But I feel like guys who clearly just got haircuts backstage and have, like, one of them has brightly blonde hair and they're just wearing generic T-shirts. There was nothing special about them at all, except for the fact that they were standing where security usually sits and wearing the masks. I felt like that was on the lower end, maybe not the lowest end, but the lower end of what they could have done here. Whether it was going to be a grand spectacle or whether it was going to be what I think I would have preferred, Alexa just snapping and not needing the visual context. So we already know what's going on. They're talking about it now. They're not just letting it be a secret that we're supposed to pick up on with these backstage clues. They're talking about Bray Wyatt in relation to Alexa now. So I don't think I needed the mask. Even though as indicated, I agree with. I am on the same wavelength as Brad, that she may be going over to the Uncle Howdy side as opposed to the Bray side specifically.
All right, let's throw back to Brad for any follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that perspective. The one thing that I thought made it a little bit more believable is, like, when the guy was standing near security, there was a security guard there that was kind of saying, like, you can't stand here, you can't, and trying to, like, almost push him back. And then is when Alexa kind of locked eyes with him and the whole thing started. So I did think that was an interesting wrinkle, just having that, like, hey, like, who are you? Get out of here type of thing, rather than the guy just standing there, but whatever. Minor nuance, but it did strike me as interesting. I am interested to hear from Sean. When Seth left the ring, was he really limping back? I mean, he could have still been limping back for the crowd and to continue to play it up after it was off air, which I would imagine he did, but I'm just curious to hear that. I'm curious to hear, because the crowd, to me, and maybe it's just from coming from that Tampa event, which was so buck wild and crazy, like, the crowd to me didn't seem ultra, hyped up for this. It seemed a little like bit of a lull in the crowd throughout the night. But except for, I guess, Seth's entrance and everything like that. So I'd like to hear about that. And what was the reaction like to Theory? And, like, how did he come across? Like, was there any more sort of recognition for him, or just kind of like, oh, man, this guy again? And that's, I mean, really, that's about it. I mean, I felt like the one other thing I want to say is I felt like Becky, I don't know, it seems like she's above this. Like, it didn't, I don't know, with the me chin stuff, and, like, it just didn't seem right to me. I don't know. There was something about it that didn't seem right. Like, if you said Becky is going to face Dakota Kai 6 months ago, you'd say, oh, like, Dakota Kai is coming in to be a jobber to Becky. Like, it just doesn't make any, like, it just doesn't, like, do it for me with Becky. I just feel like Becky, like, almost in the sense of Brock Lesnar, like, has to be up against an absolute top-tier person, or else it doesn't matter. And, you know, against Damage Control, fine, I get it, they're the tag team champions and this and that, but to me, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. But I'd love to hear what Sean has to say, so I'm going to let you guys get to him. Otherwise, I would go on, but thank you for having me on. Tom, thanks as always. Wade, thanks as always.
All right, thanks, Brad. Good to talk to you. Tom, I'll get your take first on especially the last point about Becky.
I didn't mind it so much. You know, I tend to be very sympathetic to the fact that they have so many hours of television to fill every week. I can level in saying that with multiple recent events, not just the Charlotte return on SmackDown, which for my part I really liked, because I think Charlotte's fantastic, and I'm not high on Ronda, so I was just excited as a fan. Although literally every other person I've heard from has criticized it, so there's that. But not just with that, but even on the Raw side of things, I thought I knew exactly what we were getting from the women's title matches at WrestleMania, and now I no longer have any idea. I'm just hoping that they don't give Ronda a second Rumble win. You know, if she's gonna earn her way into a title shot, just give her the less prestigious Elimination Chamber. Let's have somebody else win the Rumble, please. But boy, yeah, no, I didn't mind it for Becky. I thought it was fine here, as you know, we've got it was an entertaining show overall, not a major show, and so we've got some time to fill. Let's have Bayley throw her cronies that she's surrounded herself with at the big baby face. And like I said, I thought it was a nice little spot for Mia.
All right, let's get some on-site perspective, as promised, from Sean in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I believe Sean deserves a jingle today.
Let's go to Tennessee. We're talking to Sean. Let's go to Tennessee. We're talking to Sean. Talking to Sean. Talking to Sean in Tennessee.
Unlike Elias, Sean, your song got to play through without interruption. How's it going?
Wade, it's going well, man. It's good to talk to you as always. And I first wanted to say that my prayers are definitely out to Damar Hamlin for the Bills. I didn't get to watch it. I'm glad I didn't watch it now, but I hope he's okay. Obviously, we'll find out more tomorrow. But that was a scary thing to hear about as the show was going on. But Tom, it's always good to talk to you guys. How y'all doing?
Likewise, I was just bobbing my head along with the theme.
Things are good. Happy New Year. How was the show tonight, Sean? You've heard, I assume, some of what's been going on in the background here on our show. Anything jump out that you want to start with in terms of your in-person perspective and the energy in the building?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, of course, this was my first ever Monday Night Raw that I've been to, so it was fun. I mean, I really enjoyed it. My friend Anthony's actually with me. I wanted him to kind of share some insight he had, too, while I was talking about it. But I wanted to say first, I'm with you guys on the crowd was definitely a little low at times for sure. I mean, it got high at certain points, like especially the Rollins, Theory match. They got into the near falls. Like, they were definitely into that match for sure. And I wanted to say with Theory, he's doing great. I mean, he looks like a star. The crowd is definitely, giving him a lot of heat. And so that match, everything about that match was really good. The crowd was definitely into it a lot, in my opinion. going back to what you guys were talking about as far as Bianca, when it looked really, yeah, I mean, her face hit the steps really hard. I mean, I was even like, wow, that was, I mean, yeah, she took a big hit there. So yeah, that was pretty legit, I thought. And then, but Wade, I kind of wanted to just, if you had any certain questions you wanted, I wanted to kind of go by what you wanted to ask, because I could go all around, but might have you give me more kind of semblance of questions. I can kind of go off certain segments.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So let's start with the reaction to the Bloodline coming out and barging over the barricade, and if that got a huge buzz and a big pop in the arena or not.
It was a decent reaction. I think it was kind of, some people weren't, paying attention initially, and so when they kind of came out, it kind of threw us by surprise, like, oh, there they are, like, and then they got excited to see them, that they were there. And so, I mean, it was a good reaction. I think it could have been a little bit better. I thought it was, it was fine. I mean, for me, for us, it was just great to see the Bloodline, there, Sammy there. He's just, I mean, Sammy himself is just so over right now. I mean, the crowd did, when he got into the match especially, they were really into him, loving everything he's doing. The stuff he was doing off, during commercial breaks, he was just getting the crowd to boo him, and but they're still, chanting Sammy Uso and different things like that. But the crowd reaction for that initial segment was okay. I mean, once they saw what was going on, they got into it a little bit more, and they liked the quote unquote chaos of it. But Anthony, what would you think? What'd you think?
Man, I almost missed the Bloodline coming in simply because I was looking forward to the opening pyro. So I'm more of a casual wrestling guy. And I've been to a Raw before. This is my second one, but it was, once I noticed they were there, like I was hoping the Bloodline would be there. I was really hoping that Roman would be there, but I figured that probably wasn't going to happen. But I was glad that they were there. Adam Pearce got booed out of the building as soon as he came out, so I thought that was pretty funny. But besides that, I think honestly, my favorite match of the night to watch live, and I usually really dislike the gimmick matches like this, but the Music City Street Fight was really entertaining to watch. And as a part of the live crowd, I don't know if there's a difference between watching that being live versus watching it on television, or how that difference comes across. But that was probably my second favorite match to be a part of the night. The first one being the main event. I thought that was pretty fun.
I don't know if there's a situation, Tom, where I would ever think to use a tambourine in a fight, though. I just don't think if I was in trying to beat somebody down, that a tambourine, despite the noise it makes, I don't know that I would use that. But I mean, it lived up to the corniness of the match gimmick.
Yeah, Corey Graves saying all the musical accoutrements are legal. I'm like, legal for what, Corey? I think I need a little bit more explanation here. I am a defender of themed battle royal or themed battle royals. What am I saying? I think gimmick battle royal is the phrase that was in my mind. These themed street fights, when they are done well by people like Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Otis has been involved in one or two that have been amusing. But it just felt like an odd fit for Sikoa. And part of me was like, well, maybe this will provide a contrast for him. The serious badass that Sikoa is supposed to be, maybe he'll stand out more because he's got this goofy backdrop. But he was willingly using the goofiness just like Elias was. So it's not something that I was particularly in favor of. But of course, it's interesting to hear the other perspective. Since I'm blabbing, I'll throw out a question to you guys about this. The reaction to Elias just seemed really loud through the television, that people were really into chanting, and maybe it's just because it's the not call and response, but it's the common phrase that, oh, this is the crowd participation part. I know this line. I'll say it out loud. Maybe that's all it comes down to, and it's not Elias himself. But man, the walk with Elias sounded loud. What was your interpretation of the reaction to him?
Yeah, the walk with Elias, I mean, definitely, yeah. I mean, it's over pretty big. I mean, the reaction to him was, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't that great. I mean, the match, going back to what Anthony brought up, which I mean, I'm with him, like being there, the match was fun. Wade, I mean, I'm with you. Do I think Elias should be technically getting that much offense on Solo? No, I don't. But I mean, Solo did win the match. He went over pretty strong. And so to me, as long as the right person wins, like I can, it was fine for a street fight. It was okay. I mean, they did a good job for what they were given. They had some fun little moments in it. Yeah, Solo doesn't need to be in that a lot, but for what they did, I thought it was okay. But Elias' reaction was good. I mean, was solid, but not anything spectacular. It was mid-range.
Who got the best reaction of the night overall, or who, is there a cluster of people who are all kind of near there?
Yeah, so I'll let Anthony too, talk after I'm done. But I mean, Bianca's reaction overall was just kind of it was good. It wasn't great though. I mean, I think she has fallen a little bit even with the fans. I mean, they're into her, they're into what she does from time to time, but I think, like you said, from last year to this year, the reaction has gone down quite a bit. Even from the SmackDown that I was at last in 2021, I think it's gone down considerably. The best reactions were definitely Becky and Seth. I mean, for sure. I mean, Becky's super over. I mean, I was yelling for Becky. I love Becky. Who doesn't love Becky? Seth's reaction was just with the song. I mean, again, Wade, we've talked about. I don't love Seth's character in some ways. I think he just kind of turned face for what reason we really don't know. But I mean, he's over. He's Seth Rollins. He's great in the ring. He's Seth freaking Rollins. I mean, the fans love him, and they're going to love him probably till Kingdom Come at this point. I mean, Becky and Seth were clearly heads above everybody else. Well, Anthony, are you kind of with me on that?
Yeah, Becky and Seth, individual pops, they were loud. I mean, of course, Sammy, they chanted Sammy Uso, and that was, pretty consistent. To tag on to, I was going into it knowing that Bianca is especially being billed as a hometown girl, even though she's from Knoxville, Nashville, Knoxville, close. I was expecting the pop to be louder, and it wasn't. So I was a little surprised on that. But yeah, definitely Becky and Seth were the top. Besides, Adam Pearce getting booed.
Right. Oh, poor guys in middle management getting no respect. Tom,
Yeah.
let me throw to you for any.
Sorry, I want to throw this one out there.
Sure.
I'm interrupting you real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was surprised that it was not a loud pop, but when they started rolling the Cody Rhodes stuff, that definitely got a pop, especially considering he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that was I'm looking forward to him coming back. I was a little bummed he didn't show up, obviously, but I was kind of hoping being 3 weeks out from Rumble we would start hearing something, and we had his video roll, and he definitely got a pop when his name was mentioned.
Yeah, Wade, here's a question. I was wondering, because me personally, I don't know if I like Cody to be brought up this much before the Rumble. I would almost like him to just show up without us seeing him for like 2, 3, 4 months. I don't know. Is this hurting with us seeing Cody this much? Is this, we think he's over and he's going to get a big pop regardless at the Rumble when he does come out. What do you guys think? I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that, too.
I don't have a hard and fast rule for this. I think you can make either way work. The surprise return versus we're going to keep him around so that he's coming back. Here's an update. He's important. We're dedicating TV time to him. We might see this with AJ, by the way, when it's time for his return. But they might save AJ to be a surprise return. And honestly, I think either can work. Part of it, I think, is what factors in is, one, are you worried about a lack of star power and just putting Cody on Raw to remind people, hey, here's a guy you liked, you were just getting into him again, and then he had the untimely injury. Don't forget he's with us and he's coming back soon. Stay tuned. And so part of it might be that they just want people going, oh, that's right, I got to stick around and keep watching every week to see when he does return. Tom, what's your philosophy on that, and how about with Cody specifically?
Of course, especially with the Rumble coming, the novelty of surprise returns is I totally appreciate that. And I I so routinely bring up how much I liked everything Triple H did in the Attitude Era that even when I referenced him earlier, I did it in more of a vague way, talking about the Rollins and the Rollins and Theory finish. I was like, oh, I bring up Triple H in the Attitude Era all the time. Let me not mention him by name. But that series of Beautiful Day video packages of him coming back from his quad tear were so great and made his return on that at the beginning of that one Monday Night Raw so big and memorable that I have frequently wondered why they don't do stuff like that more often. So that is where my mind was when they were rolling this. And sure, it's just part one of however many, and they didn't really get into the injury yet. They were just talking about the return. But that's where I then get into exactly what Wade was already saying, that I think it's just important to remind people of what our... Cody barely got started in his WWE return. He feuded with one dude for 3 months and then had to go away. So I think there's a lot of value in reminding us, not just intellectually, but reminding us emotionally, as this video did, how we felt about Cody's return, so we can be right back in the heat of it when he comes back, and they will be less behind the 8 ball than the injury already put them.
Tom, do you have any concern, because I do, that Cody's desire to sound like the smartest person in the room, using big words, sometimes incorrectly, and coming across as somewhat potentially self-important, will backfire on him like it did in AEW, because there's an undeniable likability about Cody's passion, his respect for his family lineage, his cherishing the idea of being WWE champion, that I think is an underplayed character. And I think that this Cody would not have worked a dozen years ago. I go back and forth, and I think it could break either way, I guess is my point, because it did break the wrong way in AEW. And I don't know if WWE fans are going to be more receptive to him, and if so, why, or if WWE will avoid, or Cody will avoid some of the mistakes that, I don't know if even the word would be mistakes as much as just steps that were taken that backfired. Maybe unforeseeable, maybe not, depending on your take. But what do you think, including the narrative of Cody in the video tonight? And was there any part of you that said, oh man, that could backfire, or was all of you, or was your consistent thought, this is a refreshing babyface character, and WWE fans are absolutely going to be paying money and cheering him on in main event matches?
Without getting into specifics, I feel the situation in AEW was different in terms of who Cody was working with and what the fans were looking for from Cody. Whereas in WWE, I hear the promo that he gave, or I guess the interview rather, that he gave on last week's retrospective show, and what he said in tonight's video package. And my thought while watching it was, these sound like, yes, very, very predetermined words, because we know that Cody very heavily prepares what he says ahead of time. So yes, it sounds like he's rehearsed what he wants to say and is saying it exactly word for word how he wants to say it. But they sound like his words. He doesn't sound like he's been scripted by a WWE writer. So that's really what stands out to me. Just his vernacular, whether every single word is used exactly correctly or not, it sounds like he is speaking from himself, not from a script that's been handed to him. And I think that even if somebody is not consciously noticing about him, it's something that will be subconsciously noticed. And among those of us who do look for those kind of things, this sub 1 million circle that follows it really closely, we will consciously notice that and comment about it as I am doing right now. But yeah, I think that is what is working for me, and I don't see any issues moving forward, since WWE will ultimately be more curated in the end. So if something's leaning a certain way or otherwise, it's not like Cody's going to be he's not going to be in the Codyverse anymore. So he will have some people reining him back in if it starts to get out of hand.
Yeah. Sean, back to you. Yeah, you want to add anything to that?
Like for me, I'm still excited about what he's going to do, and when he gets back. So I think the video packages are definitely well done. I mean, it shows the things we do like about Cody. But yeah, there's things that worry you a little bit about Cody later on. But it'll be good when he comes back. He's going to get a huge pop like he should, and so I'm excited to see what they do with him. I did want to say the match I did want to talk about, because we won't talk about it much other than me being there live, was Anthony can testify. Him and his son went to go get some more to their drink and go to the bathroom. Like I really don't. I've told you guys I'm not a fan of Dexter Lumis at all. I just him beating. I know Gable's been defined to a pretty a low level by his standards. Like Chad Gable, and Anthony can talk about this too. Chad Gable is so talented. It's so sad that he's been reduced to this level in WWE, because Dexter Lumis, his character, and I know Tom, I know you're I guess a little higher on him, and I want to see where it goes with him, but there's just nothing there to me at all. Like some of the stuff he did in the ring when he got in there, kind of got a laugh out of people, like a chuckle, but other than that, the crowd was just absolutely dead. It was just absolutely dead, and I don't know. Lumis winning with a roll-up, I just don't know where they're going with him. Like, what do you guys think? I just thought the match wasn't that good because Gable couldn't really do a lot with them, and it was just blah. It was really, really blah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, because it does seem like it is a consistent trait with Dexter Lumis. I was at an NXT show when they played his music, and I just felt lulled into this weird meditative state after his music played. And then his ring style just kind of takes you further into that realm. Tom, you've experienced a lot of Dexter Lumis. What do you think? And is it even a feature, not a flaw, that the crowd is I don't want to say not reacting, but that they react differently than they do for a typical match? Is there any way to frame that as a positive, or is it actually kind of a problem that his matches lead to or are often accompanied by a crowd that just doesn't seem all that invested, or if they are invested, it's very quiet?
Definitely a problem. Just anecdotally, throughout the show, I was chatting with a friend, somebody who I've enjoyed wrestling with over the years. He used to take me to some of the earliest shows that TNA had at Universal Studios. So he and I have been chatting about wrestling for a long time. He hasn't watched WWE in a while, and he decided to tune back in tonight. He said that he liked the Alexa Bianca match, for whatever that's worth. And then for this one, he was like, yeah, this is when I reached over and grabbed my Nintendo Switch. He was not into this one. So more agreement there. And yes, the music. Yes, he's got different music now. It was a bit of a Stranger Things ripoff in NXT, but in NXT, that is one of the things that I pointed out, is that he's being presented as a babyface, but he's like a stalker serial killer that we're supposed to like, because it's cool that that's what he is, I guess. And we on the Daily Cast, we were all, and Sean, you would remember this because you were always calling in. We were always feeling like he was trying to emulate Kane, but when Kane came out, his music had a big explosion at the beginning of it. That gets a reaction when Lumis's music just sort of like hums in quietly and drones on. It may be evoking a certain feeling, but I don't think it translates to how we're supposed to react to a wrestling character. Now, I definitely have been higher on how Lumis is being presented now compared to what my prediction was for how he would how he would translate to the main roster if he made it there, based on what I had seen in NXT. Because this side of anything, it tied in with Indy Hartwell, which did become very adorable, just like against all odds. That was maybe not. It was like just the right kind of odd couple thing. Really, really fun. And if anything from the weird Gargano saga that was, I would like to see that come to the main roster.
You're looking forward to Rhea Ripley and Dominic feuding with Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell.
Yes. Now that you put that on the table, yes, give that to me. It sounds good. But and they, in the context of NXT and NXT house shows, they've kept those references alive. Dexter recently made a surprise appearance and at a house show and reunited with Indy again. So that's nice. But this side of Index, I was trying to remember what they called it. Index.
Mm-hmm.
Everything Loomis did in NXT was basically repulsive and did not work at all. Only once they got the indie thing going did he start to show a little bit more. And I mean, yeah, that's come to the main roster a bit, but those key issues are still there that you guys are observing. So, I don't foresee a very high ceiling on Sam Shaw here.
Index is nice, but I was more for Turdy, which was the backup name for the couple. That got my vote.
Of course. That's when Dexter got sharded.
Oh man, Sean. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but anything happen off air, either during commercial breaks or before or after the show, that you can relay to us?
Well, I wanted to let Anthony talk about Gable really quick, because he's obviously a Gable fan like we are, and so it's kind of sad to see, just going back to him, what they've done to him talent-wise.
Yeah, no, I was actually looking forward to seeing Gable live. I like the guy. I think he's very talented. I think he's got charisma. Like I said, I'm a casual watcher. Like, I'll probably tune in once a month. And every time I enjoy seeing his segments. But when I saw what's his name, Dexter, was going against him, I have zero interest in that guy at all. So I mean, the Shoosh is fun. The Shoosh got a big pop. I really hate that was during the restroom break, but I think that Chad Gable is, I don't know. I mean, you guys are the pros in this scenario.
Gable's entrance wasn't on TV, correct?
I don't think it was, Tom, was it?
When Gable came to the ring, was it on TV?
I feel like I saw it. I feel like it was, but I'm not going to commit to that.
Let's see. In my report, Patrick hyped that Dexter and Chad was coming up next. They went to a break. They went to ringside. They talked about AJ's injury. And then the next thing I have is the match starting. So I didn't comment on either ring entrance. And, yeah, I don't know either way.
Yeah. I was just curious. But yeah. Anthony, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That's pretty much it. I was looking forward to it. One fun spot that I thought was when Otis absolutely annihilated the ring post. That was pretty fun. But besides that, it was a sleepable match, and I hated that. I don't think that. I mean, if it's me, I have zero interest in Dexter Loomis at all. I would have much rather seen Johnny Gargano in that spot with Chad Gable instead.
All right.
Yeah, the question I was going to ask too, Wade, was when Montez Ford was on the ring apron during the Usos Zayn against Street Profits and KO. Well, and KO got a good reaction too as well, going back to that. But did they say on commentary that he was like kind of lamenting with what happened to Bianca, and that's why he didn't tag in a couple times or didn't look kind of okay?
Yeah, they covered that on commentary.
Cool. So I'll say, like, during commercial breaks, like, again, Sammy was great. I definitely like, he got the crowd, involved. And going back, talking about heat, getting the most heat, Bayley, got, tons of heat. Like, she's still super over. Even though I don't love what Bayley's doing in some ways. I think she could be, she has been, I think they could do more with her, of course. I think she's been kind of dull since she got back at SummerSlam, but I think the crowd still wants to boo her, and they want to give her a reaction because she deserves it, because she's been so good over these last, over the years. And so I hope there's just some more there with her. I'm trying to think of anything more during the breaks. I know Theory was, just doing a lot of good stuff during the break. Again, I just thought it was another really good night for Theory. I think he's doing a lot of good things. I know. I really love that match. The near falls got the crowd really invested, but it was fun to be there for my first Raw. Like a 3-hour show to me is again too long, but I was never bored. I mean, they kept me engaged, kept everybody engaged, and it was a good show. So I wanted to say too, I do agree with Brad. I did like the Bianca Alexa more than you guys did. Wade, I'm with you on Bianca too. I mean, we've talked about it many times. I mean, some of the stuff she does is a little iffy to me, but I thought the match was good, and I'm, like you said, I'm curious where they go with Alexa. I mean, they've got a good storyline there.
Sean, I just want to be sure, was there anything after Theory Seth, or was that just it? Thanks for coming.
Oh, yeah. No, there was not. And I can tell you the main event matches, too, the matches before Raw as well.
Yeah, go for it. Do it.
So the first match was Nikki Cross went over against Dana Brooke. And Dana Brooke, yes, she still flexes, and that's all she does. That's her gimmick still. And it's just like, I'm glad she's on main event now and not on main TV anymore, because it's just, there's nothing there. Nikki Cross, it was good seeing her in person. Like, she got a decent reaction for the people that were there. It was fine. And then, Wade, I feel bad on NXT with the dyad. Who is, I know they were grizzled young veterans. Who is the bald guy that was in that group? I cannot remember his name. What is his name?
I cannot remember right now.
Zach Gibson.
Oh, okay. Yep, there you go. Thanks, Tom.
Yes. He wrestled Shelton Benjamin in the second match, and Shelton got a really good response. Like, the crowd was for a main event match, they were really into him. He had some good. I mean, it was a good match for what it was. He got the win, and then he actually got the mic afterwards and said that he's been on the in WWE for 20 years now, and that he's not done and he's still got more to do. Which, I mean, he doesn't have a lot more to do because, they haven't done anything with him, and it's been kind of disappointing. But, I mean, the crowd was behind him. I mean, the crowd was really into it. They said, thank you, Shelton, and they were really – it was a cool moment for what it was for a main event show. I mean, the crowd, like I said, was behind him, and I was behind him. I mean, I've always liked him. I know we always have. And so Anthony can really talk about that real quick, too. But it was good. I mean, it was a fun match for what it was, and and I do want to say, too, it was funny how – in that backstage segment, coming back from the break after the brawl at the beginning of the show, and they were getting ready for the matches, or they're talking about the matches, and they're saying, we're going to have Sami and the Usos go against Street Profits and KO, and Mustafa and Cedric and all them were there, and they just he didn't even look at them. I mean, that's how defined down they are right now. And so, but Anthony, talk about that real quick.
Yeah, no, I was very pleasantly surprised to see Shelton. I've always been a Shelton Benjamin fan. So in college, I was a dork. We're on a wrestling podcast, but did y'all ever play the card game Raw Deal?
I did not.
No, not I.
All right, well, it was a wrestling card game, and I had a Shelton Benjamin deck. So I was a Shelton fan back in the day. So having him there, I was very pleasantly surprised. And I don't know much about Hurt Locker.
Hurt Business.
Or Hurt Business, sorry. Hurt Locker's a move. I don't know much about Hurt Business, but in his promo, or in his, not his promo, but in his thank you after the main event match when he got the mic, when he said, like, it very much sounded like he's going to be making a final run type deal. Like, I'm here, I'm not done yet, we got one more in us, let's go. Like, that was kind of the vibe I got from it. Yeah. But it was very much just a thank you note also. Afterwards, at the very end of it, I wanted to tag on this because I heard you guys ask about Seth limping out, or how he handled that. He kind of was down and out on the entrance side of the ring for a minute. Then Corey Graves, he left commentary earlier than Kevin Patrick, I feel like, and he was over there, and there was some sort of interaction with Seth and Corey. And I don't know what that was, but then they got up, and then he limped out, but he had a ref on one side and Corey Graves on the other side, so they limped out and kind of carried him out. But I couldn't tell if that was just playing to the crowd, or if that was he actually had a little bit of because I mean it looked like a weird knee. I mean, knee spots always make me nervous anyways.
Yes,
but that was kind of how that ended out. There was no, nothing after the show besides "Thank you guys for coming."
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm sure there'll be news on it if there was something legit, but they might have just been doing trying to make it feel a little bit more real. Which I give them props for doing so as part of the show too, if that is what it was. All right, cool guys. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate all that you shared.
Yeah, Wade, appreciate you, man. Always good to talk to you guys, and I'll hopefully talk to you here very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Andy. All right. I want to next grab an email here. This is Matt from South Carolina who says, Happy New Year. Just a quick comment. I know there'll probably be a lot of people who roll their eyes at the Hardy involvement, the singer-songwriter, not one of the Hardy Boys, in the Solo Elias match. I may have rolled my eyes in the past at these things too, but after the match, I pulled up Hardy on Amazon Music and listened to some of his stuff. I'm sure there will be plenty of his fans who will be curious as well and check out Raw. Thinking about it, it was the MTV crossover stuff that got me into wrestling close to 40 years ago, and that turned out well. Just something to think about. I would love in 40 years for somebody who was a Hardy fan to then be like whatever the technology is then, like emailing, calling, texting, telepathy, whatever, saying it was that Hardy moment that got me into pro wrestling. What do you think tonight of the, they are Music City, and there is a tie-in with the Royal Rumble musicians. What do you think of that, Tom, tonight?
Yeah, my knee jerk. I was resisting asking Sean and Anthony sarcastically, like, so I know you were really excited to see Hardy, right? But the reason I didn't is because, I just watched Miley's New Year's Eve party, and more than half of the musical guests on it I had never heard of. That's just how it is now. Culture moves. If I was still 18 right now, I'd probably know exactly who Hardy was, and well, if I was 18, I'd be watching his music videos on TRL. But it's fine. It's okay that I didn't know who this specific person was. When Jon Stewart makes cameos, I can get excited again.
Jon Stewart's awful in wrestling. Come on, Tom. He's like my least. I
would
like,
probably be the first to tell you that.
Oh, I mean, I've enjoyed some of the stuff he's done on Daily Show, but oh my God, in wrestling, honestly, one of my least favorite celebrity. He just hams it up in such a cornball way. It's so degrading. But anyway.
He doesn't have the instincts for it.
No.
And briefly, I will mention, I apologize. Of course, Zach Gibson is now going by the name Rip Fowler, and absolutely sympathize with Sean for getting that, because if he's anything like where I totally understand why they do most name changes. So I'm not that person who's getting upset with name changes. But what I've noticed happening with myself is that I'll memorize the first name that I know them by, and then once they change the name, I have trouble learning the new one. But in the process of learning the new one and failing to, I also forget the old one, and then I just don't know what the person's name is anymore. So then, like even people that I'm a fan of, I frequently, since I bump into him from time to time, I frequently mention, and I have to pause to think, Marcel Bartel, Ludwig Kaiser.
Yeah.
And
there you go. Good job.
So I'll tell little anecdotes about running into him around town, and I won't know what his name is because I just can't think of it anymore.
That's funny. All right, so along the same lines of the last email, JB from Detroit said, AEW has recently been accused of having low-level celebrities on their show in Rick Ross and Bow Wow, but I've at least heard of them. I've quite literally never heard of Hardy, who seemed to play a big part in a match. Kevin Patrick had to literally say singer-songwriter Hardy out of fear people wouldn't know who he was, although I would say that might have been out of concern that people would think it was Matt or Jeff. So anyway, I don't know if we have more to add on that, but JB had his thoughts on that. He also said, do you think branding the Elias Solo Sikoa match a Music City street fight and using gimmick weapons like a keyboard or an electric piano, as Corey Graves comically called it, and other musical instruments was the best idea? It made what was initially built as a serious match feel a bit more comedic to me. And also, was Elias the best person to have a, quote, serious opponent to the dangerous Sikoa? So we talked a little bit about the instruments earlier. You can comment more on that, Tom, if you want, but I just don't think Solo should have needed that much time to beat Elias. I don't think Elias needs to be protected. I think this was the case if they had TV time to fill. And I think it hurt Solo Sikoa's brand and image as he continues to be in the early stages of being defined as a threat in the ring, to have him last that long against Elias. What do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it as discussed when we were talking to Sean and Anthony. Not really too much more to add on top of what I already said. I suppose I will. I'll ask you a question about it, but first I will mention that in a brief Google search, apparently Hardy was the 2021 Country Music Association Awards New Artist of the Year. Oh wait, no, I apologize. He was nominated, but he did not win. But he did win the 2022 Academy of Country Music Awards Songwriter of the Year, and apparently he has written songs for Florida Georgia Line, Blake Shelton, and Thomas Rhett. So I know that I've heard of them, for what that's worth. But again, like we're all going to have heard of different people, especially now that through social media, so much of our exposure is global, and we all get in on different algorithms, and we're all into different things. So it's fine. But what I want to ask you, Wade, about Solo Sikoa is, I guess I won't provide any further context as to why I'm asking, but what is your opinion of the Samoan spike?
Oh, I don't have a strong opinion either way on it. I mean, it's fine. I don't know. What you seem to have? You ask for a reason.
Yeah, I like it in theory. I like moves. I appreciate why moves like that are done. I think like in a classic sense, almost like I think the most recent example might be Chris Jericho's Judas effect. That there's very little risk of injury to either person, and yet it's sold as something really, really devastating. And I personally feel like that's what wrestling is. Wrestling isn't triple flips where you risk breaking your neck.
Right.
Wrestling is telling a story that comes off as physical and provides the as much of an illusion of risk as possible while actually minimizing the actual risk. So like the whole reason wrestling is worked, I'm going off into my whole tangent about that now, but the whole reason it's worked is so you can make the next town.
Yes.
It's not a boxing match where you have to then, spend months getting ready for it again. So I like it in that regard. I also think it's kind of odd that he just flings it out of nowhere and then the opponent goes down. I almost feel like when Sheamus gets hit with the Samoan spike, it can come out of nowhere, but Sheamus might initially react like, oh, he just hit me. I get hit all the time. And then all of a sudden, I guess this is an ill-fitting night to bring it up. But then all of a sudden, his legs just start to go out from under him, and he sort of looks shocked and looks up at Sikoa with a look of dismay before he collapses because the spike did more damage to him than he realized. And that's how I imagine it. That it's less of what Sikoa does and more of how it's sold by the opponent. But it's just sort of a quick little jab and the opponent goes down. So in theory, I think it's great, but the execution thus far, I'm not so sure. Yeah,
well, I mean, Blackjack Lanza ground his knuckles into the temple of his opponents to win his matches when I was a kid growing up watching the AWA. The territory that I grew up watching was not a bunch of fancy moves. It was wrestlers selling rather ordinary moves, and it was the larger-than-life personalities and the consistency and framing of the selling that told the story to me. And I'm certainly more with you on that than the average fan today, and I will advocate and argue in favor of that. Also, I'm for efficiency and selling, not actually hurting your opponent or putting yourself at great risk. And there's room for chances to be taken, of course. But yeah, I think the excess of flips and dives, especially when it's your opponent standing there waiting to catch you, or often overshooting you, and then you have to take a phantom bump afterwards. At some point, somebody needs to just say to these people, just because running and leaping over the top rope, gets a crowd pop, I guess. It just looks awful, and yeah. Anyway, but let's not do that tangent right now any more than we have. Also, JB said, A recurring theme from Triple H so far is he sometimes seems to like to open the show with action occurring before the cameras even start filming. I actually like this at times because it breaks up the formulaic WWE approach. However, the downside is what they did actually have planned had the Bloodline not interrupted things. What was planned if not for that? Were those plans just scrapped in kayfabe because the Bloodline decided they want to run the show? So, yeah, Tom, would that be more trouble than it's worth? To have the announcers go, well, we had a lineup for you tonight, but that's been thrown out the window. Adam Pearce is rearranging things. And you don't even need to list the matches, but a little lip service towards the notion, yes, we had a card, we had a lineup. But because of what happened, we're changing it. And frankly, I'd like to see them. I know there's a risk that fans will go, I'd rather see that match than the one you're booking. Just make sure that's not the case and mention the match that you had booked instead.
Yes, I think as you talked through options, I think what I've landed on, because I am also that fan that, like JB is, noticing that kind of thing, like when the main event gets announced and you're like, oh, so you were just going to say you were just going to have Monday Night Raw and without a planned main event, you were just hoping that something would happen. Okay. I definitely always take note of that. I think I would like lip service paid to the idea that something is actually being disrupted here and this was not the planned segment, but stop short of saying what it was. Like maybe Corey Graves can get upset that, like, hey, we have matches that are supposed to be taking place right now, but don't say what it is because of that risk of making it seem like we're actually missing out on something. Or, he might say Nikki Cross versus Dana Brooke, and you're like, oh, well, that's fine because I didn't want to see those two anyway. So all due respect, I actually do like them. Maybe I'll tune into Main Event to check it out. But I think
the problem is Main Event is taped before Raw, so then there'd be people attending the live show who would watch Raw back and go, "That's so fake."
So I think that may be the middle line. Yes, this is absolutely something that we've seen from Triple H, which we've seen it enough now. I want to say this is only the third time since he took the reins, but still, that's less than half a year, and it's happened 3 times. So when the show started like this, I was just sort of like, oh, okay, they're starting another show like this.
Yeah.
That was the extent of my reaction.
All right, then JB's final point is I think it's smart to advertise Cody Rhodes in his recovery packages before the Royal Rumble to get him on people's radar. Shout out to, I believe, Brandon LeClaire, who suggested this last week, but it could have been another co-host. Just a vote in favor of that. All right, finally, the last email I'll read here is Zach in Texas. He goes, are we absolutely sure the disgraced former CEO is in shadow booking Raw? A lot of his worst habits popped up. We got a theme street fight for no reason with an inexplicable celebrity involvement, seemingly just for the hell of it. The women's title was booked specifically to set up a rematch at the Royal Rumble instead of just building that match. Alexa's being dragged back into the Fiend realm. Becky's being used to rehabilitate damage control some, but at this point I wonder if they're so damaged that it's actually more detrimental to Becky than helpful to them. Zach in Texas. Tom, any thoughts on that?
No, Vince McMahon is not shadow booking Raw. I don't know what else. How can I extrapolate that further? I don't think so. I did for whatever it's worth, which is probably very little. Or earlier in the show, I cryptically mentioned, when I speak to people who are close to the company, and I'm not going to get any more specific about that. But when I did have a conversation with somebody recently, they did just randomly offer the sentiment, half the people think that Vince is coming back.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't think he is. I mean,
I don't think so either.
Somebody thinks so. I think the odds of that are actually quite slim. But I'm not ruling it out. I mean, if Vince wants back in and he's maneuvering, in part because of the family connection with Paul Levesque and Stephanie, but I know people in WWE who tell me that there would be a fierce pushback against that from places that Vince McMahon might not have the power to overcome, despite being a majority shareholder, because there's a reality. It's a business and associating with him and his perhaps denial or obliviousness to people of his generation who are accused of and documented to have done the things that he has done or been accused of or paid people to not accuse him of. What happens to those people generally is not they go away for a few months, get itchy for the power and fame, and then they get welcomed back. That's just not the pattern. So, cool. Okay, let's we'll wrap up there. Anything else you want to add from Raw, Tom?
I feel like there was one thing that I'm going to kick myself if. Oh, the one thing is very silly. I was going to jokingly mention that I noticed how Adam Pearce really made a point of saying, "And that's official." And I think Adam Pearce is trying to get himself a WWE Shop T-shirt.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Always a blast having you on.
Thank you. Check out Speedway Video and Bonus Point.
Absolutely. And sorry to the callers we didn't get to. Just the show's running along tonight, and I didn't want to cut Sean and Anthony short in there. It was Anthony, right? That was his friend?
Yes.
I think, yeah. So I didn't want to cut them short in their on-site report, but I got to get this show to the producer before it gets too late here. So we'll talk to y'all tomorrow on the flagship. Send your emails. If we didn't get to your call or email, you can, or especially your call, email the flagship, Wade Keller Podcast at PWTorch.com. Thanks again, everybody. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to y'all next time.